Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Dr. Sahara Omar. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, currently practicing here in the state of Texas. And today's video is continuation on what we've been doing from previous videos on how do you do the work, how do you recognize when you're stuck in chaos, and how do you come out of chaos and actually heal once and for all. We're going to talk about today something called trauma bonds. Trauma bonds historically was coined by a psychologist named Dr. Patrick Carnes. Patrick Carnes was working with addiction and addicts in general, and he noticed that people who struggle with addiction also struggle with abusive relationships. And he's the one who first recognized these 4 steps that shows up in abusive relationship. Later, other psychologists came along and kind of expanded on the concept and showed it from different perspective. In the modern era, we have psychologists named Dr. Ramani Durvaskala. Dr. Ramani studies narcissistic personalities and the impact that it has on us when we are encountering with a narcissistic personality because they are abusive in nature. So she also talks about the cycle. So I wanted to break it down for you guys so that way you can recognize if you're stuck in one or if you know someone who's stuck in one. Feel free to share this video with them, because the hardest part for everyone, for all of us I would say, is to just first recognize if you are in chaos, and then you can make a decision whether you want to step out of it or protect yourself from it. Okay, so with physical abuse, let's start there first. Physical abuse leaves physical marks, right? So you can see like a bruise or a cut, and then all of us as human beings, since it's very tangible, we can recognize this person is being physically abused. With trauma bonds, they happen on psychological and emotional level, so it's not tangible, it's not very physically apparent. However, it always shows up in these 4 steps. Now, it shows up a little bit differently if it's between a mom and a child, romantic relationship, friendship, co-workers, because the dynamics are different and the language is going to be different than one another, but the theme, the underlying theme will be the same. All right, so it always starts with love bombing first. That's the first step. Love bombing is a form of excessive admiration. The person is literally putting you on a pedestal. They don't see any flaws. They will compliment you a lot. They will shower you with so much love. If they have means, they will buy you things, whether it's like gifts or things that you always wanted to have, expensive things like traveling and purses and stuff like that as well. So it just feels like this person literally is showing up in a way that your parents never did as a child. So there is this excessive form of admiration, right? So you're being put on a pedestal. The language, like I said, it's a little bit different. So if it's like a parent-child relationship, this is a parent that will brag about you to their friends and family members, and they will say things like, you are the best child I've ever had, you are my miracle child. Romantic partner, this is a person that says I love you really fast. The best way that other people describe it to me, like some of my clients will say, like it feels like suffocating, or the person is just excessively showering me with gifts that I didn't even ask for. And usually I would call it out and be like, yeah, that sounds like love bombing. And then from there it goes to stage 2. Stage 2 is criticism and deep value. The person literally now starts to jab at things that you cannot change overnight. So your personality style, your characteristics, things that you value that's important to you, they are now just kind of tearing it apart. They will make fun of the way you eat. They will make fun of the way you laugh, things that you enjoy. There's a high level of conflict in this stage where there's a lot of back and forth. If you're stuck in this stage with someone, you are defending yourself. Like you find yourself saying things like, well, this is who I am, or this is who I like, or this is what I like, this is my mom, or this is my brother. Like there's this sense of like you have to defend the things that you like and what makes you who you are at the core. Since there's a lot of conflict in this stage, what happens is we move to stage 3. In this stage, you either take a break because it's so overwhelming, or they will take a break from you. And we call this discard. In the discard phase, when they are discarding you, there is a lot of silence treatment. The person now ignores you. in dating, for example, this person will just ghost you. There's no communication and you're like, what just happened? You have no idea what happened. If you live together, so this is like a parent-child relationship, for example, this is a parent that will ignore you and literally act like you don't even exist. So they will, at the dinner table, say, tell your brother, pass me the salt. And you're like, I'm right here. So very passive-aggressive instead of just asking you. So if you live with them like a partner as well, they will just walk around, ignore you, and just give you that silence treatment. So there's a little bit of like, I'm going to act like you don't exist, which then brings this sense of like angst. So you're going to either go back, high level of anxiety essentially, right? So you're either going to go back or they will come back because they also want to have that connection again. So this part is called hoovering. Hoovering literally comes from the vacuum hoover, where the concept behind it is you just get sucked back into the dance itself. With hoovering, in this stage, there is superficial apologies of what happened in stage 2. The person will not take any accountability of what they just did in stage 2 that led to the high level of conflict. So they will not say things like, I'm sorry that I'm criticizing you about your mom. Moving forward, I'm going to leave that relationship up to you so that way you can decide. So there's no clarity. Instead, they will sound like this. I don't even know what we're fighting about. Can we just let it go? Let's just go get lunch. There's this sense of like brushing it under the rug and just skipping over the fact that we had a 10-minute argument about this thing that I cannot change overnight, okay? So if you let them, they will hoover you. Sometimes we hoover ourselves back in because we just miss them, right? And if we let that happen, we're gonna go back to stage 1 again. The love bombing happens again, and then the cycle just repeats, and then what we call a merry-go-round essentially. So why this is a problem, right? So let me grab something. Let me show you guys this piece. So this cycle will split you into 2 halves. And the problem with this splitness, it literally splits your brain, not physically, but in a psychological way, where when there is love bombing and hovering, the person is providing what we call hope, right? Hope on a chemical level, there is dopamine that your brain is producing. And typically we produce dopamine after good activities, things that pleasure-oriented. So after you have sex, for example, you produce dopamine. After you have food, especially high content in sugar food, releases dopamine. After we engage in any kind of activity that is adrenaline-oriented, will also produce dopamine. And then when there is the other side, when there's criticism and discard, that whole, we're gonna get jabbed at, and then now they are giving us the silence treatment. It's opposite of hope, which is despair, because we're like lost and confused why. And then that means on a chemical level, on a brain level, there's no dopamine. So you're going through withdrawal essentially from the dopamine. Depending on how many times you've been going around in this cycle with the person, literally your brain becomes addicted to the dance itself. And people who are stuck in this cycle, they say things like, when it's good, it's good. When it's bad, it's bad. We have an up-down relationship, right? Like what they're telling you is, I'm addicted to this cycle because when it feels good, it really feels good. But then when we're fighting, we can't find any resolution, okay? So this becomes addictive. On average, it will take us around 7 merry-go-rounds before our brain can recognize, oh my God, this is emotionally abusive relationship. And this is also hopefully gives you guys an idea why people don't leave dysfunctional relationships, because of the level of addiction to the cycle itself. So when clients describe ending a trauma bond to me, they say things like, it feels like death. Or I had a client that one time said, I feel like my arm is cut off, like part of my body is cut off. It's a graphic way to describe the ending of these relationships, but that's literally what it feels like. It's like a ripped part of you that comes out. And literally what they're describing is the withdrawal that they're going through by not having dopamine, okay? So then the question becomes, actually, before I go to the question part, here's another way that we're all programmed to think this is love. This is not love. This is just pure chaos. It's trauma bond. Every romantic movie you watch, every Disney movie that you watch also shows this cycle. So as a culture in the States, We are programmed to think this is love, right? So the movie, the people fall in love right away. They are having fun, slow motion, right? They're fighting, they take a break, they come back, and then the movie literally ends right here after stage 4, because we know the cycle repeats. Those of us in the mental health world, we know the cycle repeats. But for the audience, they're just happily ever after, the end. Okay? So that's another issue that we have as a culture. We all are looking forward to this as a way to describe what love is. And this is not love, okay? So then the question becomes, how do you break this cycle? The way we break this cycle is to first recognize that you're stuck in it, because you can't break something that you do not recognize, right? Once you recognize, oh, I'm stuck in an emotional abusive cycle, or this is a trauma bond, then you have to recognize, where do you set your boundaries? That's how you break this cycle. I did make a video about boundaries. If you are interested, go back and watch it as well. But literally, you just have to first recognize, and then you can set your boundaries, and that's how you regain your power back. If it's a new relationship, like a romantic relationship or a friendship or work colleagues, overall, what I recommend to all of my clients is just learn how to slow down. Take things on a slow pace. You don't need to talk to people every day when you meet them in the beginning. Maybe once or twice a week, a point of contact is good enough. You don't need to invite them into your house right away. You don't need to talk for 8 hours on the phone when you're dating someone in the beginning. That's too much accessibility, and that leads to either oversharing, and also the love bombing becomes this easy way to manipulate your psyche in general, right? So in the beginning, you can set a boundary here, leave early, slow down on the point of contact, right? Like, that's ways that you can slow the love bombing down. If you are like, like familiar relationship, like this is your sibling or your mom or your dad who's dysfunctional, with the criticism phase, you can also set your boundaries here, or you can let them know, like, hey, please don't criticize me anymore. If you continue to criticize, I'm not going to engage with you, right? Those are ways that you can set your boundaries in that stage of the criticism. With discard, you can also set your boundaries when a person is ghosting you. Call it out, right? Like, are you ghosting me right now? If you are, there's no need for us to continue in this dynamic, right? And then with the hoovering stage, similarly, when a person comes back, you can hold them accountable for what they did in stage 2. Label it out loud. Hey, when you criticize my family, or when you criticize me on this situation, I don't appreciate it. So please, you can give feedback when I'm ready, but criticism overall needs to stop, right? That's one way to take that ownership back when they are hoovering you. So literally, that's how you break the cycle. Recognize that you're in it, and also give yourself an opportunity to set your boundaries in any of these stages. And then the other piece that I also recommend is just be cognizant and mindful that every one of us can fall into this cycle. It's not susceptible to a specific population. You just have to not be aware of it, and then the next thing you know, you're stuck in it, right? So just have empathy towards people that are stuck in these cycles as well. I hope you liked the video. Please hit that thumbs up. It really helps. Feel free to comment and subscribe as well, and also share it with people that you care about. Thank you guys. See you in the next video.